So I have just rearranged everything in my apartment. Well, almost everything. I'm not totally done, but the books are done, and that's the most important part. So I went through and pulled out a bunch of books that I am going to unhaul. I don't really consider myself a book collector. I generally only want to keep books that I think I might want to reread, or I might want to loan to someone, or I might want to refer to or something at some point. There are some books on here that I don't think that's necessarily true of, but I'm not emotionally done with that book yet. First, I will just rapidly go through this stack of books that are like mostly kind of childhood books-ish. The first books are 2 books out of the series that starts with Sorcery and Cecilia, so I think this is the second and third book, I believe, Mislaid Magician and The Grand Tour, and this is a really, really fun series. It is very cool because it's told in letter form, and the 2 authors are actually writing letters back and forth to each other, and that is just so cool to me that they did that. And I remember loving this series, but I haven't reread it since, and I don't necessarily see that happening, so there's really no need to keep it. I can pass it along to someone who will love it. Then I just have kind of a bunch of sort of classics. So I have Peter Pan, The Prince and the Pauper, Little Men, which is a sequel to Little Women, The Inheritance, which is also by the same author, and An Old-Fashioned Girl, also by the same author. So these 3 Louisa May Alcott books, I was obsessed with Louisa May Alcott when I was a kid. I read all of her books many, many times. I did keep Little Women because I could maybe reread that at some point, but I don't see myself rereading these. I remember An Old-Fashioned Girl being extremely religious, but I did enjoy it. The Inheritance, I believe she wrote when she was like a teenager, and I liked it when I was a kid, but I know it has a reputation for being really terrible writing. And then Little Men, yeah, I just don't see myself reading it. And same with these 2. Loved Peter Pan as a kid. Probably not going to read it now. I don't know if I ever read The Prince and the Pauper. I think I did. Then I have some YA books. I had gotten rid of almost all of my YA, but these made it until now. Mara, Daughter of the Nile. I actually started to reread this via audiobook a while ago because I was obsessed with this book when I was like 13 or 14. So I wanted to see if it was actually good or not. And I actually was like infuriated almost immediately reading this book now, because it like really, really aggressively vilifies oh my god, what was her name? The woman who was Pharaoh. I can't remember her name. Anyway, really, really intensely vilifies her in a really, really misogynistic way, which is weird because this is a female author, but anyway, it might get better, I don't know, but I don't care to find out. Then You Are One of Them. I thought that it was very, very interesting. It is about Russia. Yeah, it's about, I believe, an American girl and a Russian girl who were friends during the Cold War. That's all I remember about it. I did like it, but I don't need it. And then I have Looking for Alaska by John Green. I was, I think, like the John Green generation. I was a teenager when his, most popular books were coming out, and so I was a captive audience, and I know that this has a lot of mixed opinions now. This is very much criticized for being a Manic Pixie Dream Girl book. I would have to reread it to see, and that's kind of why I have kept it this long, to hypothetically reread it at some point. It was always my interpretation that you were supposed to see her as a Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Like, you were supposed to understand that the main character has assigned her this role of this exotic character in his life. And that doesn't work out well because, of course, she's not an exotic character in his life. She is a person, and you can't just be characters in other people's lives and fulfill functions in their lives and not have it have any impact on your life. So anyway, all that to say, it's not like I won't be able to get it from the library if I do ever make time to reread it, so I don't know. So some more recent reads, The Guest Cat by Takashi Hirai. I really enjoyed this read. It was very beautiful, picturesque, quiet, contemplative. Don't need to reread it. Probably will never think about it again. The Nakano Thrift Shop I DNF'd. Violets I liked but didn't love. Some books that I've had for quite some time that I decided to pass along. The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. This is a super random book. I don't know how much anybody has ever heard of this, but G.K. Chesterton is kind of a Christian author along the same lines as C.S. Lewis, who kind of bridged the gap between mainstream and Christian writing. I did read multiple G.K. Chesterton books when I was a kid, and this one is a very, very bizarre book. So I did re-listen to this sometime during the pandemic. I think it was 2020, and it didn't make a lot more sense to me now than it did when I was a teenager and first read it. This is kind of suspense story, almost reads like a noir detective novel, but it's actually more of like an allegory, so it's kind of bizarre. I think it's supposed to be kind of absurdist, but I don't know what point he was trying to make with this at all. It was one of the weirdest books that I had read as a teenager, so I always kind of had a sentimental like pull to it, but it's meaningless to me now. Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I enjoy Walt Whitman. He is one of my favorite of like classic poetry, but let's not pretend that I am ever going to read this. The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. I really, really like this book, but I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. If I did, it would be an audiobook. This is kind of drawing parallels between Taoism and Winnie the Pooh as a character and as a life philosophy, and it is a very fun book, very good philosophy, like kind of a way of letting things go, of letting things be. For one thing, I would like to read more about Taoism from a non-Western perspective, and also, yeah, if I want to reread it, I'll just get an audiobook. So next, To Kill a Mockingbird, actually. I never thought I would be getting rid of this, but honestly, again, if I wanted to reread this, it is everywhere, and I don't know that I will ever reread it. As a teenager, this would have been among the top 3 books that I would have said were my favorite books, and I will always hold a, you know, sort of fond place in my heart for To Kill a Mockingbird, but I think I'm done with that phase of my life, you know? Like, I just think I've moved past this book. I think that most people are well aware of the, not controversy around this book, but just the ways in which this is sort of lacking being written in the perspective that it was written in. And I haven't read Go Set a Watchman, but I actually think that that was probably a very good addition to this book. You know, the idea that of course all of these people were racist. Like, of course they were. How could you ever imagine otherwise? I don't think I need to reread it. Much differently, A Tempest by Aimé Césaire. I don't know how to say that, I'm really sorry. This is a retelling of The Tempest, and this is really good. If you haven't read this, you should read it. It is, as you can see, quite short, also in script form, and it is a retelling that emphasizes the colonialism and the empire and racism that exists in The Tempest. I tried to read The Tempest prior to reading this because I never had to read it for classes or anything like that, and I was bored out of my mind, so I just read a plot summary, like a Spark Notes or something like that. This one was far easier to read, far more entertaining, and I think also shorter, but it is kind of subverting the assumptions and character stereotypes, or whatever you want to say, that are very racist in The Tempest, and showing you kind of the reality behind those. I do highly recommend it, but again, I don't see myself rereading this. I feel like this is like really controversial, but I'm getting rid of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I think I've read the first 2 Lord of the Rings books. I'm not sure if I've read the 3rd one, to be honest. Possibly the problem was that I read The Hobbit first. I don't know. I just don't love these books the way that everybody else does, I don't think. They're good, but I don't need to read them. 11/22/63 by Stephen King. So, I used to be, I would say a moderate fan of Stephen King. I've read probably 10 to 12 of his books. In the past 3 to 5 years, I really have lost interest in his work. It's not that I would say don't read it, but it just has been something that I have been less and less interested in reading. 11/22/63 is my favorite of his works. This is a historical fiction, obviously based on the assassination of JFK, and to me this is the most well-rounded, most interesting, most meaningful of his books. This one just had something additional. None of his works really tapped in emotionally for me except this one. And I have read this probably 3 or 4 times, I think. But I did re-listen to it, I think last year, and I didn't love it the same way that time. It started to feel a little bit more misogynistic to me, and just, I think it's hard for a book to hold up to 3 or 4 rereads. And as it turns out, I'm not sure that this one did. It is still a book I would say is worth the read. With so many amazing books out there, it's hard for me to recommend that you prioritize Stephen King over anything else. But if you want to read a Stephen King book, this is the one that I would say to do. But yeah, I just think I'm done. I think I'm alright. We're good. And I have this series, I think there's some name of the series, but I think everybody just knows it as the 3-Body Problem trilogy. This is a hard sci-fi series. It is massively creative, one of the most impressive series that I've ever read in my life. Difficult to read, honestly, extremely detail-oriented, prone to long technological and scientific monologues, and really, really bad characters. Not like they're bad people, some of them are bad people, but very poorly done characters. Some of the worst female characters I've ever read in my life. Still an incredibly impressive series, but I don't imagine that I will reread this. If I did, it would probably be in audiobook form, and the author has said some problematic things about Muslim people, that and the fact that I don't imagine that I'm going to need to reread these physically. I'm just going to pass them along. Next up is Eating Animals. This is something that I have kept kind of sentimental value, but I read this book right after I became a vegetarian, over 11 years ago now. Yeah, I don't need to reread this. I'm never going to reread this, and I don't need it. I have a few books in Spanish, but before I get into those, I will just show this stack. So there's more of them, the rest of the hardcovers, but I am decluttering Harry Potter. I kind of have thought off and on about doing this for years, ever since J.K. Rowling became really, really super obnoxious. Obviously, there were problematic things in the books themselves, but ever since she started broadcasting her problematicness all over the interwebs, I have kind of toyed with the idea of decluttering the books, and I've just decided that it's the time to do it. So I do have several of them in Spanish. That's upside down, but well. I have 2 of them in German, and then I have the full set, obviously in English. It's not that I will never read them again. Potentially, I might listen to them again from the library at some point in my life, but, I don't want them here. I I don't know if that's hypocritical or what, but I don't like the idea of having them, you know, visible in videos and stuff, like as if I am in solidarity with her in any way. This is something that Jessie at Bowties and Books was talking about, that at this point, if you are still like, you know, giving her royalties or anything like that, you are essentially choosing your sentimental memories and that sort of thing over trans people's, you know, feelings and rights and lives. And yeah, it was just kind of, you know, it was something that I'd thought about for a long time before, and so it was just kind of a wake-up call to me of like, yeah, it's just time. I've already been not giving her royalties for years now, you know, all of these Spanish ones I bought used and such, but it's just time to move on. It's hard for me to read the books now and not see all of the problematic stuff really, really strongly, and to not be thinking about what a garbage human she is. And so, you know, again, this isn't like a never again will it happen thing, but I just think I might be okay, you know? I have 2 books in German here, a book about swearing and a children's book. I have 4 Narnia books in Spanish. I did read 2.5 of these. These were the first 2 chapter books that I read in Spanish, so I considered keeping them out of some kind of, you know, sentimentality, but I don't have room for sentimentality, and so I just don't care. I don't care about reading these anymore. They were a really good stepping stone because I'm really familiar with the stories, and they were written very relatively simply, but with all of the amazing books out there that I am trying to make time for reading, I don't care about Narnia anymore. I'm sorry. Similar, The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde or something like that. I got this for like 25 cents at a used bookstore. It's never a book that's jumped out to me to read it in English. Again, there are so many more things that I want to read. I read this a couple weeks ago. This is the first Percy Jackson book in graphic novel form in Spanish, and it was a fun read, but I don't need to keep it. And then I have Goodnight Moon in Spanish. I remember when I got this at the beginning of learning Spanish, and I could not read it for the life of me. So, that is the unhaul. I quite like a good unhaul. I like to keep my collection quite pared back so I can look at my shelves and be enamored with everything that is on them. But if you have a different philosophy about your shelves, definitely let me know. Do you keep everything that you read? Do you like to have a lot of unread books? Yeah, anyway,